برحمة أستغيث أصلح لنا شأننا أنفسنا طرفة عين. Alhamdulillah, we are on Bab Salat al-Musafir. We are on the chapter of the Salah of the one that is traveling. And this comes under right after the chapter of the one that is sick. And now we are going through the different Ahl al-A'dhar, the ones that have the excuses. So the author, he has categorized them into different categories. And today we are taking the masail or the issues of the one that is traveling. قال المصنف رحمه الله ابن قدامة المقدسي. Ibn Qudama, may Allah have mercy upon him, says, وإذا كانت مسافة سفره 16 فرسخا وهي مسيرة يومين قاصدين وكان مباحا فله قصر الرباعية خاصة إلا أن يأتم بمقيم أو لم ينوي القصر. So the author rahimahullah, he puts down certain conditions that the traveler has to meet before he is allowed to do qasr, before he is allowed to shorten his prayer. And he says, rahimahullah, he says, the first one is إذا كانت مسافة سفره 16 فرسخا. If it is 16 فرسخا. And this is a measurement that they used to use in his time. And the scholars of Islam have done a research and a bahth upon this type of distance or this type of measurement, and they have said that it is approximately 80 kilometers. So approximately 80 kilometers in our measurements today is equivalent to 16 farsakhan. وَهِيَ مَسِيرَةُ يَوْمَيْنِ قَاصِدَيْنِ. And it is the distance or the travel of 2 days, of a person that intends to travel. And what is meant here is this is the distance of 2 days normally traveled by a camel that has a load on it. So this is the distance that is normally traveled by a camel that has a load on it, and it is equivalent to approximately 80 kilometers. وَكَانَ مُبَاحًا. And then he says it is mubahan. What is? It goes back to as-safar. And the traveling is mubah. So when we talk about the traveling, a person can either travel for different reasons. For example, he can travel for hajj. And that would be, it could be wajib or it could be mustahab if he has done hajj already. He can travel for umrah. That would be mustahab. He can travel for sightseeing. That would be mubah. He can travel for something that is haram. For example, a person is living in a Muslim country and there's no alcohol that's sold in that country, so he travels across to a different country in order to consume alcohol. That is a travel, as-safar muharram. It is a haram travel. And here we see that the author, he says mubahan, and obviously what is understood is anything above mubah. So mubah, anything that is permissible, and of course if it's wajib, then you can do qasr, you can shorten your prayers, right? However, the safar al-muharram, the haram traveling, the travel that is the intention, the sole purpose of that trip is for muharram, for a haram reason, then he cannot travel for that reason. And the reason is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gave us a rukhsa, He lightened the load upon us, when in our ibadah. And that rukhsa should not be used for doing something which goes against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands and His prohibitions, which goes, which something that Allah has prohibited. So the scholars have said that if it is a travel that you are intending to do something which is haram, that's the sole purpose of it, then you do not have the luxury of shortening your prayer, right? You don't have this benefit. Right? And something that should be noted is that a travel which there is haram involved in it does not necessitate it being a travel that is haram. For example, if you are traveling and you backbite, or you lie, or you watch something which is haram while you're traveling, right? Maybe you're traveling to visit a relative or to visit a city that you wanted to see, right? That does not mean that your travel is haram. That just means that whatever you're doing, that particular action is haram, and that does not negate your permissibility or your allowance to use the rukhsa, right? To use the exception. You are still allowed to use the exception. The dabit, or the crux of the matter, is if the intent of that trip, that safar, is for a haram purpose, then in that case you are not allowed to use the rukhsa. Wallahu a'lam. فَلَهُ قَصْرُ الرُّبَاعِيَّةِ خَاصَّةً. Then, so if he meets these conditions, right, he has the distance, which is 80 kilometers, we said approximately, right? And he's going for a mubah or wajib, something which is not haram, then he is allowed to shorten the salawat that are 4 rak'at. There are 4 rak'at. Right? And those are Dhuhr, Asr, and Isha. You can shorten them to 2 rak'ahs each. Two rak'at each. Now, when we come to, when we look at this mas'ala of the illa an okay, let's continue inshallah. Illa an ya'tama bimuqim. Illa an ya'tamma bimuqimin. And he says, rahimahullah, he says, except if he is led by a muqim. So for example, you're traveling and you come to a village and you decide to stop out there to pray Maghrib. And you're praying with the people of the village in their masjid, right? Praying in their masjid. And the imam he lives there, he's not going to pray the traveler's prayer, of course. He's praying Maghrib, or for example, he's praying Isha. Let's use another example. He's praying Isha. And you pray with them. And he prays 4 rak'at. You cannot pray 2 rak'ats behind him, right? Even if you are late for 2 rak'ats, for example, you only catch the last 2 rak'at. You can't just give salams and say that, oh, my intention was Salat al-Musafir, my intention was the traveler's prayer, and I'm only praying 2. This is incorrect. You must follow the imam. You must follow the imam in what he is doing. Even if you've missed the rak'at, you have to get up and pray the other 4 rak'at. أو لم ينوي القصر. And another condition is if you did not make the intention for qasr. So the author rahimahullah said that you need to have the intention of qasr before you pray it. Meaning that when you start praying, you have to have that intention before you start praying. You cannot change your intention, inside your salah. Right? If you've started and you have the intention of praying 4, then you have to continue praying 4. You cannot be changing your intention while you're in the salah. You have to have that intention before for the qasr. Now, a mas'ala comes up. What if you don't know you're in a masjid and it's a masjid where it could be a person that is traveling, or the imam could be a person that lives there. You don't know, you're not sure. What do you do? Then the scholars have said that you can make the intention that whatever the imam is praying, whether it's a general intention to follow the imam, and that is sufficient, that is permissible as well. You can do that. So if he prays 4, you pray 4. If he prays 2, you pray 2 behind him as well. The author rahimahullah, he says, أو ينسى صلاة حضر فيذكرها في السفر أو صلاة سفر فيذكرها في الحضر فعليه الإتمام. So he says rahimahullah, or if he forgets a salah that he should be praying when he was present in the city, and he is on a trip. So for example, you're on a trip, you're traveling to Ottawa, or you're traveling to Montreal, and you remember, you're from the people of Toronto, you remember that you forgot one of the salawat, and that salat became wajib upon you when you were at home, right? You were at home. So what do you have to do? You have to pray the complete salah. And it's wajib for you to pray as soon as you remember. The Prophet ﷺ said, whenever you remember the salah, it becomes wajib. You have to pray it at that time, right? So you have to pray it, and you have to pray full. Even though you're traveling, you have to pray it full, because it became wajib upon you in the while you were in hadar, while you were at home, and you did not have a rukhsah. Similarly, if you forget to pray a salah while you're traveling, so for example, you're traveling and you did not pray Isha, for example, you forget it. When you get home and you remember, now that salah was wajib upon you, but it was wajib in the time of rukhsah. What do you pray? You still complete it for 4. You still complete it for 4 because you are home right now and you don't have that opportunity of praying the rukhsah salah. You don't have that advantage of cutting short to 2. You must pray it full 4 rak'at. So if you forget it, and it's a salah that is you've forgotten during the time when you were supposed to pray it full 4 rak'ats, and you remember it while you're traveling, you pray it full. And similarly, if you forget a salah while you're traveling and you remember it when you come home, then you must pray it full as well, because you are home at that time. قال المؤلف رحمه الله, then he continues and he says, وَلِلْمُسَافِرِ أَنْ يُتِمَّ وَالْقَصْرُ أَفْضَلُ. And he says that the musafir, it is permissible for the musafir to complete his salah, right? And of course, if you are praying behind someone that is completing their salah and you're traveling, then it's permissible for you to do that. Lakin al-afdal is to do taqsir. The afdal, the preferred, is to shorten your prayer. So even if you're praying by yourself and you decide you want to pray it full, it's permissible. However, the afdal, the better thing to do, is to take the rukhsah, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves when you take His rukhsah, if He gives you a rukhsah. And the scholars have said أن القصر مستحب, that qasr is mustahab. It is recommended for a person to do. It's not wajib, rather it is recommended for a person to do, and this is the majority opinion of the Jumhur al-Ulama, the majority of the scholars. وقال المؤلف رحمه الله, and the author رحمه الله, he says, ومن نوى إقامة أكثر من 21 صلاة أتم. He says, and whoever has made the intention of praying 21 salawat or more, and this is the equivalent to 4 days or more, then he needs to complete the salah. He needs to complete his salawat. And the author rahimahullah is going by the opinion of the Hanbali school of thought, and that is, if your intention is to stay in that place for more than 4 days, then you must complete your salah, because you are now considered a muqim, a resident, not a traveler anymore, if your intention is to stay for 4 or more days. However, there is another opinion, and this is another opinion that a lot of the fuqaha have mentioned as well, and it is the opinion of Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah and others, that as long as you are traveling, as long as you have that intention of traveling, whether it's 4 days or 10 days or 15 days or 2 days, do you have to have more or less, etc., right? And there are conflicting, or there are different reports from different Sahaba about the distance as well. So Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, in these 2 masail, he said that it is whatever the urf is, whatever is custom in your time. So if you traveling from here to Niagara Falls, for example, is customary that you call that a travel, And how do you know if it's a travel? Well, if you are taking az-zawaid, if you're taking extra food, you're taking clothing, you're taking different things, right? Then you consider that traveling, right? If you're taking extra, you're setting up to travel, right? And this is something which is known, right? You know when you're traveling, when you're not traveling, right? If you're traveling, you take that extra effort. You may put some food, you put some clothing, you may put, extra jacket, you may put some different things, right? Depending on how long you're going for. And that is the way how you decide if it's a travel. And then the length, as Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah has mentioned, it can go on for as long as you do not intend to stay to live in that place. And how do you know when you're living in that place? The scholars have mentioned different things. For example, if your family is not with you, so you're traveling and your family is not with you, they're back home, then obviously you're in a travel, right? You're not living there. If you don't have all of the luxuries of your home, right? You don't have a bank account in that country where you're in. You don't have a wardrobe, right? You've taken clothing that you're using, right? And so on and so forth, right? So there are certain things you can tell by where a person, he doesn't live in this place. He's not muqim in this place. He's not set up permanently in that place. And as long as you're not set up there permanently, then you have that rukhsa of the shortening and combining the salawat. Now, what about the person that is always traveling? The person that's always traveling, right? The fuqaha have talked about the person that, for example, he's in our time a truck driver, right? He's traveling from city to city to city, and that is his job, that's his life. Maybe he'll start off, he lives in Toronto. He starts off from Toronto to Montreal, and then he has another load from Montreal to Halifax, and then from Halifax maybe he'll go to Manitoba, and then Manitoba maybe to Saskatchewan, and he keeps doing this. And of course, in between those stops, he may take a rest, for a night or two, right? He has a hotel perhaps that he's staying at, but this is his life. Maybe he comes home once a week, or maybe once a month, or a few days a month, and then he goes on again, right? What about this person? Or the person that is a sailor, and he's sailing, from place to place in order to catch fish, in order to do tijara, etc. Right? What about these people? What is their hal? What is their condition? Are they considered a traveler or not? And the scholars have said that yes, they are considered a traveler. They are allowed to take the rukhsa. They can shorten and combine their salawat throughout the whole time, as long as they are not living in that one place, as long as they're not living there and they have their home. Even though they're not at their home for most of the time. And they've given the exception, except one case where a person is traveling and that is his home itself. And they've mentioned the example of the person that has a ship, and he has his family with him, and he has his kitchen, and he has his everything on that ship. And in our days, we can say like a mobile home. A person that has a mobile home, and that is his home. He has his kitchen, he has his bathroom, he has his wardrobe, everything living there. And he drives from place to place, and he doesn't have a spot where he owns or where he stays permanently, right? But he has his family with him. He has everything with him. Then that person would not be considered a traveler. He would be considered muqim, because that is his home. That is essentially his home. And then the author, rahimahullah, he goes on to say, وَإِن لَمْ يُجْمِعَ عَلَى ذَلِكَ قَصَرَ أَبَدًا. And if he does not know, he's not sure of what time. So before he said that 21 salawat, 4 days, then if he has an intention greater than that, he cannot do qasr. Now he's saying here that if he does not know the amount of salawat or of time he's going to stay. For example, he has to do some business in a city, and he's not sure. Perhaps he goes and he gets the right person the first day, right? He goes and he submits his paperwork into the capital, maybe. He gets his job done within 1 day, he comes back home, he's good. Perhaps it can take a week. Sometimes he has to keep going, he has to find the right person, find the correct signature. Maybe they tell him to go back somewhere else, get another permit, etc. It may take more than 1 week. Right? Maybe he goes, the person that needs to help him out is not available. He's not sure. He's not sure how long he's going to stay, then he is allowed to, according to the Hanbali madhab, he is allowed to shorten his salah and combine forever, or until he has finished his maqsood, his intent. And we will finish off here inshallah. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Tomorrow we will discuss, or we will talk about Bab al-Salat al-Khawf, the chapter of the prayer of fear. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala